Yes. Thank you.
You want to try that over?
You get to start again.
All right, I'd like to call to order the February 22nd, 2023 Redevelopment Commission meeting. Roll call, please.
Mr. Aurelio.
Here.
Mr. Blazak.
Present.
Ms. Daniel.
Here.
Mr. Swets is absent. Mr. Schilling.
Here.
Mr. Wizawati.
Present.
Mr. Westland.
Present.
I am present. Cindy Suze is present, and Aaron Kuzma is absent.
All right, item number 3 is approval of the minutes. I should have the minutes from the January 25th, 2023 regular meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the January 25th, 2023 regular meeting.
I got a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I got a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 4-0. Public comment. Is there any public comment out there for the RDC? Seeing none, we'll move on to old business. Item A, Riverfront District License Update.
If I may.
Yes.
So tonight on the town council's agenda is the ordinance that authorizes the issuance of the 10 license permits. That will finalize the process of the Riverfront District, but was made aware of some interesting findings, and if you want to kind of talk about that in terms of the timing for the TIF, blah, 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 that kind of thing, just to update them.
Oh, sure. I was prepared for it in the council meeting, but we can talk about it now. So Councilman Pondemus and also Blazek asked a few questions relative to the Riverfront District and what happens when the allocation area expires. So I guess first off, the language gets real technical and you can get lost in the language, but the Riverfront District is tied to the economic development area. Inside an economic development area, you can have an allocation area or what you guys commonly refer to as a TIF area. So the Riverfront District is not tied to the TIF allocation areas. It's tied to the economic development area. Those EDAs do not expire.
Okay.
So your Riverfront District, unless they change the statute, will not expire. Right? I mean, I can't, none of us can predict what our legislature may do in their infinite wisdom relative to the Riverfront districts, but for now, there's no expiration on them.
Okay, good to know, because I thought that was one of our questions, where fear was, or we had an open-ended question, if the TIF expired, then does the liquor licenses or the Riverfront
Have to be
expire? It does
renewed.
not.
It does not.
It does not. That's
And so, and that's important. The other question I think Brian asked was, you know, relative to like restarting the TIF areas and whatever. I had a fairly lengthy conversation with Phil Vicenda. Was it, Joe, a lease?
Yeah, there was
A lease revenue bond in 2014. That's not the standard TIF allocation area bond. So that one wouldn't have been the trigger to the 25 years. But you did do some things in 18 and 19.
Right.
And what Phil suggested was that between Senator Dalton and Phil Vicenda, that they could give you guys a chart of, all right, in this allocation, and you guys have done some combination of allocation areas as well, which affects the start date. So his suggestion was, if you really want to know when all of these expire, like what we should do is have him and Senator Dalton sit down with those resolutions, the bonds, and do that calculation and give them to you in a chart, which he said he'd be happy to do.
that would be great. I would love that.
But, yeah, the TIF allocation area would expire 25 years after the first bond. So,
First bond.
In
Right.
2018 was the first bond?
we're thinking it was 18 or
28
19, is
2018.
what Phil and I came up with.
2018.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, so add 25 years to that, right? 45? No, 43.
43.
43, right? I only know how to divide by 3. So, that's kind of what you're looking at for that. I think that answers Brian's question. Wayne, you were the one that initially asked the question.
Asked about the school system lose any money, how does that work?
Okay, so high level, right, without going into the details, because like they teach whole classes on this that take days, right? But I set a base level when I start an allocation area. So if the base level is $1, right, people pay taxes on, and the base is the base assessment level, right? So if the base assessment level is $1, you pay taxes on that dollar, that whole allocation area. Those taxes on the dollar, when it's, the base is established, have been split historically, roughly, a third, a third, a third between the school, the town, and the county. Okay? So if, you know, a penny on a dollar comes in, because it's residential, that penny gets split a third, a third, a third. Now, when you set the allocation base at $1, let's say it goes, the assessed value goes up to $10, right? So the $9 difference, right, the taxes on that $9 do not get paid in that third, a third, a third anymore. They get paid all to the allocation area, the town, essentially, to be spent in the allocation area or in the economic development area. The school still gets their share of the base level, and so does the county, and until the allocation area drops off in 25 years, then everybody gets a third, a third, a third again. So it's really the growth that the school and the county do not get their share of, or what we call the increment, right? And the theory behind it, and I'm not arguing a position one way or another, because folks do take fairly, passionate positions relative to, whether TIF is good or bad or whatever. But the theory is that on that $9 in my example, but for the fact that it was in an incentive, in an allocation area, and you gave an incentive, it would have never happened, right? Because you don't give an incentive for private development that's just rolling along. You give an incentive when, but for the incentive, the private development would not happen. So the theory, and I'm just saying the theory is that the school and the county are not losing out on anything, because if you didn't give the incentive, if you didn't establish the allocation area, it would have never happened.
Understood.
Okay.
Very good explanation.
Yes.
And again, folks, and I've seen it argued both ways, take, positions on that, well, it would have happened anyway or whatever, but that's the theory behind it.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you. Anybody have anything else on the riverfront update? Anybody have any reports? All right, we'll move along to payment of the bills. Should have the docket there in front of you.
I'd like to make a motion to approve accounts payable vouchers in the amount of $292,900 and no cents.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 4-0. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
This meeting's adjourned.